My wife asked me for a divorce on a Tuesday night. The next morning, I started packing. By lunchtime, she was begging me not to move out, not to stay married, just not to leave the house. I think that's the part I've had the hardest time explaining to people, because even saying it now makes me feel like I'm leaving something out. I'm not. For 6 years, Claire was my wife. For 9 years, she was the person I told everything to. She knew I hated tomatoes but liked ketchup. She knew I couldn't sleep with the bedroom door open. She could tell I was having a bad day just by the way I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter. And somehow, I had no idea what she'd been doing behind my back. The night she asked for the divorce, I'd actually stopped for groceries on my way home. I bought her vanilla yogurt. She ate the same one every morning. There's still one in the back of my fridge as I'm writing this. I don't know why I haven't thrown it away. Maybe because throwing away a yogurt feels stupidly permanent when signing divorce papers somehow doesn't. Claire waited until we'd finished eating before she told me. She didn't cry. I did, eventually. Just not in front of her. I went upstairs, locked myself in the spare bathroom, turned the shower on and sat on the closed toilet for probably 20 minutes. I remember feeling embarrassed. My wife had just ended our marriage, and I was still worried she'd hear me crying through the wall. That's pretty much who I was in our marriage. Always trying to make things easier for her. Even when she was the one hurting me. I barely slept that night. At around 3 in the morning, I started looking at apartments. I wasn't trying to punish her, at least I don't think I was. If I'm being completely truthful, maybe a small part of me wanted her to see me packing. Maybe I wanted her to panic. Maybe I wanted some stupid movie moment where she'd realize this was real and tell me she'd made a mistake. I got the panic. I just completely misunderstood why. By 10 the next morning, I'd found a small furnished apartment 15 minutes from work. It wasn't nice, but it had a bed, a kitchen, and a landlord willing to do month to month. I paid the deposit before I could talk myself out of it. Then I pulled 2 suitcases out of the attic. Packing after 9 years with someone is weird. You keep picking things up and remembering where they came from. A shirt she bought me in Chicago. A watch from our 3rd anniversary. The ugly gray sweater she always stole when she was cold. I put that one back. I still don't know why. Claire got home just after 5. I was halfway down the stairs with a box when she saw me. She stopped so suddenly that I nearly laughed. For 1 second, I thought I'd gotten exactly what I wanted. She looked terrified. I thought she was terrified of losing me. That thought lasted maybe 30 seconds. The second she realized I'd already paid for another place, something changed in her. She started asking how long the lease was, when I planned to move, whether I'd changed my mailing address yet. That last question bothered me. I remember thinking it was a strange thing to care about when your husband was standing in front of you with half his life in a cardboard box. Then she asked me not to leave for 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. I asked if she'd changed her mind about the divorce. She hadn't. That hurt. More than the night before, actually. Because now I knew she didn't want me. She just needed me there. I kept packing. That's when Claire started taking my clothes back out of the suitcase. At first, I thought she was having some kind of breakdown. She wasn't screaming or crying, she was just quietly folding my shirts and putting them back into the wardrobe, one after another. I remember watching her and thinking, this is the woman I've slept beside for 6 years, and I have absolutely no idea what she's doing. When I tried to stop her, she finally said something. She told me I couldn't take all my clothes because people would notice. People. Not her. People. I asked who she meant. She wouldn't answer. And that was the exact moment my sadness started turning into something else. I started thinking there was another man. I hate admitting that. Claire had never cheated on me. As far as I knew, she'd never even come close. But when your wife asks for a divorce and then starts panicking because someone might realize you've moved out, your brain goes to ugly places. Mine did. Then her phone lit up on the bed. I wasn't trying to read it. I swear I wasn't. But my name was right there on the screen. The message said, "Is Ryan still living there?" Claire grabbed the phone almost immediately. I only saw it for a second. But that was enough. Because suddenly I understood one thing. Someone already knew our marriage was ending. Someone was waiting for me to leave. And my wife was doing everything she could to make sure they believed I hadn't. At that point, I still thought she was protecting an affair. I wish that had been the truth. I didn't confront Claire about the message right away. I wish I could say that was because I was being smart. It wasn't. I was scared of hearing the answer. There are certain questions you ask knowing your life might split into a before and an after the second someone responds. I think I stood there for a full minute, staring at her phone even after she'd locked the screen. Claire knew I'd seen it. I knew she knew. Neither of us said anything. That silence told me more than an explanation probably could have. I left the suitcase open and went downstairs. Claire followed me a few minutes later. She started talking about the house, the mortgage, how complicated everything would become if I moved out too quickly. It sounded rehearsed. That's what bothered me. The night before, she couldn't explain why she wanted a divorce. Now she suddenly had a list of reasons I needed to stay. I asked who had texted her. She said it was her sister Lauren. I actually felt relieved. For maybe 5 seconds. I've known Lauren almost as long as I've known Claire. We weren't friends exactly, but we'd spent Christmases together, birthdays, family vacations. There was no reason for Lauren to care whether my shirts were still hanging in a wardrobe, and there was definitely no reason for Claire to hide a text from her. I asked to see the conversation. Claire refused. That was when I knew she was lying. Not suspected. Knew. The strange thing is, I didn't feel angry yet. I felt stupid. I started replaying the last year of our marriage in my head, looking for all the moments I'd apparently missed. The night she stayed late at work. The weekend she visited her mother alone. The way she'd started taking calls outside because she said the signal was better. I had explanations for all of it. That's the dangerous thing about trusting someone. You do half the lying for them. You find reasonable answers before they even have to give you one. I asked Claire one more time if there was another man. She said no. And even then, part of me believed her. I hate that part of myself now. She could have told me almost anything, and I would have searched for a version where she was still the woman I married. Instead of arguing, I went upstairs and kept packing. About 10 minutes later, Claire came into the bedroom crying. She told me she needed me to stay until the end of the month. Not forever. Not until we fixed the marriage. Just until a specific date. That changed everything. I asked what happened at the end of the month. She said nothing. I asked if someone was coming to the house. Nothing. I asked if she owed money. She just kept crying. And then she said something about losing the house. I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. We'd never missed a mortgage payment. I handled most of the household bills. I knew what was coming in and what was going out. At least I thought I did. I asked if she'd borrowed against the house. She said no. I asked if she was in debt. Again, no. Then she told me she'd signed something for her mother. Claire's mother, Diane, had always been a problem in our marriage. Not because she was cruel. Honestly, I almost wish she had been. Cruel people are easier to say no to. Diane was helpless. Or at least she was very good at looking helpless. Every few months there was a new emergency. A broken car. An overdue bill. A medical expense insurance somehow hadn't covered. It was never enough money to completely destroy us. Just enough that saying no made you feel like an asshole. 3 years earlier, Diane had asked us for $12,000. I said no. Claire agreed with me. That's the memory that keeps bothering me. She sat beside me at our kitchen table and said I was right. She told me her mother needed to learn. Then, apparently, she went behind my back and helped her anyway. Claire brought me her laptop. She opened an email and showed me a document. I didn't understand most of it. There were pages of legal language, company names, and property details. Then I saw our home address. I kept scrolling. Claire's name was there. Diane's name was there. And then I saw mine. My full legal name. For a second, I honestly thought maybe I'd forgotten signing something. That's how far my brain was willing to go before accepting the obvious. Then I saw the signature. It looked like mine. Close enough that someone who didn't know me might believe it. But I knew immediately. I don't loop the R in my first name. Whoever signed that document did. I remember staring at it and feeling something inside me go completely quiet. The divorce didn't matter for a moment. The message didn't matter. Someone had put my name on a legal document connected to my house. And my wife had known about it. Claire swore she hadn't forged my signature. She said her mother must have done it. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. Then I asked how long she'd known my name was on the document. She wouldn't look at me. That was my answer. I started reading properly. I searched the company listed at the top. Then I searched some of the terms I didn't understand. Occupancy verification, primary residence requirements, false declarations, fraud investigation. Every search made the room feel smaller. Suddenly, Claire's questions made sense. Had I changed my address? When was I moving? Was I taking all my clothes? She wasn't worried about me leaving. She was worried about someone proving I'd left. I asked her if someone was checking who lived in our house. She finally nodded. I can't explain what that did to me. The woman I'd been mourning for less than 24 hours had apparently been using my presence in our home as evidence for something I didn't even know existed. And then I realized the timing. Claire had known about the investigation for 2 weeks. She'd asked me for a divorce anyway. She wanted our marriage to end. She just needed the outside world to think it hadn't. I picked up my suitcase. Claire followed me downstairs. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. I didn't care anymore. I reached the front door before she finally told me the one thing she'd been hiding. Diane wasn't the person being investigated. Claire was. And according to her, if I moved out before the end of the month, there was a very real chance she'd be charged with fraud. I wish I could say I left. That would have been the clean version of this story. My wife had lied to me, hidden legal documents from me, and somehow dragged my name into a fraud investigation I knew nothing about. Any sane person would have walked out. I stayed. Not because I forgave her. I stayed because I needed to understand how the woman I'd slept beside for 6 years had ended up terrified of me changing my mailing address. Claire told me everything that night. Or at least, she told me what I believed was everything. It had started 18 months earlier. Diane was about to lose her apartment. Claire knew I'd refused to give her mother money again, so she found another way to help. She signed paperwork saying Diane lived with us. On paper, our house became Diane's primary residence too. Claire made it sound small. One address. One form. One lie. But lies don't stay the size they were when you told them. Diane used our address for more paperwork. Then financing. Then another application. Claire kept signing things because admitting the truth would have exposed the document before it. By the time she understood how bad it was, my name was already involved. That's what she told me. I asked about my signature. Claire cried and blamed Diane. I asked if she'd ever seen her mother copy my signature before. She said no. I asked why Diane even had access to documents with my signature on them. Claire had no answer. That should have been enough for me. It wasn't. I still wanted Claire to be innocent in some part of this. That's embarrassing to admit. You'd think betrayal makes you hate someone immediately. It doesn't. Sometimes it makes you work harder to defend them, because accepting the truth means admitting you loved a version of them that never existed. Claire said an investigator had contacted her 2 weeks earlier. They wanted proof of occupancy. Bills. Mail. Photographs. Anything showing who genuinely lived in the house. That's why my clothes mattered. That's why my address mattered. That's why Lauren had texted, asking whether I was still there. Claire had told her family everything. Everyone knew, except me. I think that hurt almost as much as the fraud. I imagined Christmas dinner. Lauren passing me potatoes. Diane asking about work. Claire sitting beside me. All three of them knowing my name was attached to something that could destroy me. And I was just sitting there talking about football. I asked Claire why she'd requested a divorce if she needed me in the house. Her answer was almost insulting. She said she couldn't handle the guilt anymore. Apparently, waking up beside me had become too difficult. I remember thinking how convenient that was. Her guilt had become painful enough to end our marriage. Just not painful enough to tell me the truth. I slept in the spare room again. The next morning I called in sick. Then I called a lawyer. I didn't tell Claire. For the first time in our marriage, I kept something from her. The lawyer told me not to sign anything, delete anything, or contact the company myself until he'd review the documents. He asked me to send him everything. So I did. Every PDF Claire had shown me, every email I could access. The message from Lauren, as best as I remembered it. Then he asked a question I hadn't considered. Did Claire give me the documents voluntarily? I said yes. He asked whether she'd selected the files herself. Again, yes. There was a pause. Then he told me something simple. People who are hiding things usually show you the version of the truth they can survive. That sentence stayed with me. That evening, while Claire was showering, I opened the laptop again. I'm not proud of it. But privacy felt like a ridiculous concept by then. I searched our address in her email. Hundreds of results came up. Most were normal. Amazon orders, mortgage statements, insurance. Then I found a folder in her sent mail. It wasn't hidden. I just never had a reason to look. There were emails to Diane. Dozens of them. I opened the oldest. Claire had attached a scan of my driver's license. Another email contained a bank statement with my name on it. Another had a copy of our mortgage agreement. I felt sick. Diane hadn't somehow found my information. Claire had sent it to her. I kept scrolling. Then I found an email from 11 months earlier. The subject line was just Ryan. The message was short. Claire had written, "I can get his signature. Just tell me exactly where it needs to go." I read it 5 or 6 times. I don't know what I was waiting for. Maybe I wanted the words to rearrange themselves. They didn't. Claire came downstairs while I was still sitting there. She saw the laptop. Then she saw my face. She didn't ask what I'd found. That's how I knew. The story about Diane forging my signature had been another lie. Claire had done it. I didn't yell. I think she expected me to. I just asked her why. She sat across from me and started crying. For once, I didn't comfort her. Claire admitted she'd copied my signature from an old insurance document. She said she'd only done it once. I didn't believe her. She said she'd been scared. I didn't care. Then she finally told me why she'd asked for the divorce. It wasn't guilt, and it wasn't because she'd stopped loving me. Her lawyer had told her that if the investigation got worse, separating our finances and starting divorce proceedings might help establish that I wasn't involved. Read that again. My wife hadn't asked for a divorce because she wanted to leave me. She'd asked for a divorce because she was preparing for the possibility that she might be charged. She was trying to create distance between us on paper, but she still needed me physically living in the house until the occupancy check was finished. That was the plan. Divorce me legally. Keep me there physically. Use me as proof. Then let me leave. I remember sitting across from her and realizing my entire heartbreak had been based on a lie. I'd cried in the bathroom because I thought my wife didn't love me anymore. The truth was worse. She loved me enough to try to protect me from the consequences, but not enough to stop using me before she did. I moved out that night. 3 weeks later, Claire was formally interviewed as part of the investigation. I gave my lawyer everything, including the email about my signature. Claire knows I did. She hasn't spoken to me since. The divorce is still happening. Sometimes I still catch myself buying 2 vanilla yogurts at the grocery store. Habit, I guess. Then I get home and remember there's nobody there to eat the second one. People keep asking me if I hate her. I don't. That's probably the saddest part. I still love Claire. I just finally understand that loving someone and being safe with them are 2 completely different things.